happened this morning. Maybe in the bathroom. Maybe a passing shop window. Maybe the dark glass of a screen you thought was off. You saw someone. And then, a fraction of a second later, you realized it was you. That gap. That tiny, almost nothing pause between seeing a face and knowing it's yours. Most people have felt it. Almost nobody talks about it. And when you do try to describe it, the words come out wrong, because the experience itself doesn't quite make sense. You looked at yourself, and for just a moment, you didn't recognize what you saw. Where did you go? The official answer is straightforward, reassuringly clean. The brain processes faces in two separate stages. The first is fast. Raw pattern recognition, ancient wiring, the part of you that was scanning the tree line for predators before language existed. It sees face, unknown face. It flags it. The second stage is slower. It pulls in context, memory, the accumulated understanding of what you look like, and it corrects the first stage. That's you. Stand down. The whole thing takes somewhere between 150 and 200 milliseconds. Less than the time it takes to blink. So there's your answer. A processing lag. Two systems out of sync for a moment. Nothing to worry about. Except that explanation tells you what happens. It says almost nothing about what it means that it happens. That your face, the one face in the world you have been looking at your entire life, still doesn't get a free pass through the first check. Still trips the alarm. Every time. The brain that built your entire identity still doesn't quite trust it. Here is something worth sitting with. Mirror self-recognition. The ability to look at a reflection and know it is you only emerges in humans at around 18 months to 2 years old. Before that, the baby in the mirror is just another baby. Interesting. Maybe threatening. Definitely not self. And here's the part that nobody seems to find as strange as it is. That moment of recognition never fully stabilizes. It is not something you achieve once and keep. It is something the brain performs, continually, every time. Calculation repeated 10,000 times across a life, and it can fail. It does fail. Under stress, under sleep deprivation, in the dark, at the edge of peripheral vision, the calculation misfires, and you are briefly a stranger to yourself. There is a clinical name for the more extreme version: depersonalization. The sense that the face in the mirror is not quite yours, that you are watching yourself from somewhere slightly outside. It sits on a spectrum. At one end, everyone occasionally, for half a second. At the other end, a disorder, a persistent, destabilizing unreality. The line between them is not as wide as you might prefer. What self-recognition actually is. Siren is a story the brain tells. Quickly, usually correctly, with enormous confidence. But a story nonetheless. And every story has a moment where you can see the machinery behind it. That gap in the mirror? That is the machinery. We are, as far as we can determine, one of a very small number of species that pass the mirror test at all. Great apes, dolphins, elephants, which will use a mirror to inspect the inside of their own mouths. A detail that lands somewhere between charming and deeply strange. A handful of others, contested, debated, and then us. Every culture that has ever encountered a reflective surface has attached significance to it. Not one has looked at the mirror and said, "Oh, just optics. Just light bouncing off a surface." Nothing here. Instead, souls, doubles, omens, the dead returning. The ancient Greeks believed that to see your reflection in a pool was to see your psyche, literally, your soul made visible. In dozens of folk traditions across cultures that never spoke to each other, the mirror must be covered when someone dies, because the soul, lingering, might be trapped in it. You might call that superstition. You might be right. Or you might consider that the instinct to treat a reflected face as something other, something that needs to be managed, covered, feared, revered, might not come from ignorance. It might come from the same thing we've been describing. That half-second, the genuine low-grade wrongness that every human brain registers every time. The mythology didn't invent the feeling. The feeling invented the mythology. And the feeling is correct about something. The face in the mirror is not quite you. It is laterally inverted. It is always slightly older than your mental image of yourself. It moves a moment after you decide to move it. It follows you. But it is not you. Not entirely. There is a philosopher named Derek Parfit who spent a great deal of his life thinking about personal identity, about what it actually means to be a continuous self across time. His conclusion was uncomfortable. The self, he argued, is not a thing. It is a pattern, a story of continuity that the brain constructs and maintains. There is no soul substance persisting through time, no essential you that travels from birth to death unchanged. There is just the story, the narrative the brain keeps telling, with you as the protagonist. Most of us know this, distantly, in the abstract. We file it under philosophy and move on. But you have felt it, directly, in the gap. Whoa. Because in those 150 milliseconds before recognition catches up, the story pauses. Just for a moment. The narrator goes quiet. And what's left, the face in the glass, is just matter. Just lights, and signal, and pattern. Not yet assigned to anyone. And then it is. The story resumes. You are you again. But you felt the pause. You know the pause is there. And you know now what it means. The self is real. It is just not permanent. It is not even continuous, not precisely. It is something the brain keeps choosing to rebuild, moment by moment, fast enough that you almost never notice the reconstruction happening. Almost. That half-second is the seam. And the seam has always been there. So, Reg, the next time it happens, the next time you catch a glimpse of a face in a dark window, or an unexpected mirror at the end of a corridor, or the glossy black surface of a screen, and you feel that flicker of wrongness before recognition reassembles itself, pay attention to it, not through it, to it. Because in that moment, before the story resumes, something true is briefly visible. The brain has not yet decided that face is you. And in that gap, that tiny, vertiginous, completely ordinary gap, you can feel exactly how much effort goes into being a self. How much is constructed. How much is chosen, rebuilt, maintained, moment to moment, without your knowledge or consent. The mythology had it almost right. The mirror does show you something beyond your face. It shows you the machinery, the seam where the story holds together. For most of us, the seam holds. The story resumes. You are you again. But the face in the glass was nobody for just a moment. And it will be again